I want to welcome everybody to the 2019 Election Forum. Can everyone hear me in the back? Is everyone? Okay, great. My name is Lisa Slitchman, and I'm the editor of the Steamboat Pilot in Today, and I will be moderating tonight. And I want to mention that we couldn't do this, we do not do this alone. And this is sponsored by, we are supported by the Steamboat Springs Board of Realtors, Routt County Republicans, Routt County Democrats, and the Steamboat Springs Economic Development Council. And so I want to thank all of our sponsors. If everyone would do a round of applause, please. And before we begin, I want to invite Jack Dysart up to sing the national anthem.
I want you all to join me in this. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave.
So before we begin, I want to quickly go over the format for the forum so that you all know what you're going to be looking for and watching. Only candidates in contested races will be participating tonight. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes for an opening statement, and then they will each have 60 seconds to answer 4 questions, which will be the same for all candidates in each individual race. The contested candidates will alternate in the order they answer the questions, and finally each candidate will be given 1 minute for a closing statement. The same format applies to the proponents and opponents speaking on the issues, although in that case we may be directing different questions to the different sides of the issue. The local Democratic and Republican parties are each providing 1 timer, and if you guys would, so that when you all are up here, when you are, Catherine, show what we've got there. We've got warnings for you, and so you will know when your time to come to a close is happening, and obviously we'll allow you to finish your thought, your sentence, but then we'll have to cut you off, and I don't like to do that, so hopefully everyone will abide by the time rules. And I want to also mention that no questions have been provided to any of the participants tonight. And I do want to mention that this year I received over 100 questions, which is a record. And so I think that shows the high interest that people have surrounding our candidates and these issues, and I think that's fantastic, actually. And then lastly, I would remind everyone to be respectful of one another, and we won't tolerate personal attacks. I don't expect that, but I just have to say that. And lastly, if everyone could turn your ringers off on your cell phone. That's always super embarrassing when that happens. And then we are going to get started. And so we're going to begin with referendums 4A, 4B, and 4C. So I want to invite Jeff Pettis and Jessica Reagan to speak in favor of the issue, and Robin Shepard and Steve Hoffman will be speaking in opposition. So if you all want to come on up. Thank you. And just to remind you all, in case you're wondering what referendums 4A, 4B, and 4C are, 4A is the mill levy to support teacher and staff salary increases, And 4B and 4C are the bond issue for construction of a new school and improvements and additions to existing facilities, plus accompanying operational mill levy. So we'll begin with a 2-minute opening. And so again, each of you don't get 2 minutes. It's a combined 2 minutes, so you guys can arm wrestle for whoever gets to say what. So we'll go ahead and begin with Jeff and Jessica. Do you want to do your opening, please?
Thank you all for being here tonight. We are here, Jeff and I are here because our teachers are struggling in this community. They're struggling to survive in the community that they work in, and they're working multiple jobs to do that. We're here because our schools are outdated. We need to do better. We need to do better for our students and for our staff. And we are at or over capacity in almost all of our buildings right now. So, 4A, B, and C support all of those things as one big package, because without all of those things, we cannot do the best that we can for the students of Steamboat Springs. 4A is a mill levy supporting teacher and staff salaries to the district. 4B is a mill levy override to support the building that everyone knows about. 4C is the proposed school in Steamboat 2, which is a pre-K through 8 elementary/middle school that is built to be flexible and change over time. And B is kind of what keeps the lights on in that building. So we're here in support of all of the students and staff in Steamboat Springs.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Robin?
Hi, everybody. My name is Robin Shepard, and this is Steve Hoffman. We're here tonight to talk about this. We both just found each other the other day. We both work in public policy, and Steve works for Republicans, and I work for Democrats, so we are a bipartisan team. We both believe that the school board and the district can give the community a better plan. We both voted for the 2017 maintenance bond because it was logical and it was specific. And we care about students, we care about teachers in the schools, but we need proposals that are strategically prioritized for the demands that we have. Steve and I have different opinions on the teacher mill levy. I am for 4A because I believe teachers in the classroom make biggest difference for our students. But I'm really concerned about the fairness of that mill levy. If you don't know, the school board decided to include administrative staff in that mill levy. So it's not a 6% raise across the board. So I'm really concerned in the collective bargaining that the teachers that make $38,000 will not get the raises that they need. So I hope that happens. On the bond, I think we need a better plan. I call the bond a pre-K bond. It was decided to have pre-K priorities over K-12 priorities. We fund K-12 education in this state. In this bond, there's going to be more money spent on 93 and 4-year-olds than 850 students in the high school. So that is not fair. We need to spend money on K-12 and not just on pre-K. So that's my thing, is that we need to be fair and that we can do better, and we need to focus our taxpayer dollars on K-12 education, not pre-K, and make sure the teachers that have the lowest salaries get the bulk of the mill levy that is passed.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll begin with the first question, and these are going to go back and forth. There's different questions for each of you. And again, we got so many questions that I wanted to incorporate as many as I could from the community. So the first one is for Jeff and Jessica. Why build a new school for preschool through 8th grade students? And I think I just, no, I didn't. Okay, sorry. Through 8th grade students now, when enrollment projections for the next 10 years reflect no growth or little growth in elementary and middle school enrollment.
Thank you. So, although enrollment is predicted to decline, that's in the short term. And importantly, all of the demographers that have looked at this issue over the past 5 years have concluded that enrollment eventually will increase. This happened with the demographer in 2014, as well as the demographer in 2016, Square Cube, as well as RSP that the district utilized. The state demographer also predicts that eventually births are going to outpace deaths here in Route County. So while there may be a short-term decline in births, over the long run, enrollment is expected to increase. This plan is a plan for the future. It is a long-term plan. That's something that our community has consistently stated that they want time over time. For that reason, we think that this is a plan for the future.
Thank you. This next question is for Robin and Steve. If the new elementary school was at a different site or offered a different grade configuration, would you support the bond issue? Why or why not?
Sure. The problem with the bond issue is that it's an all or nothing proposition. The entire cost of the new school by itself is approximately $150 million in payouts over the life of the bond. And if the demographers are wrong, that's a $150 million mistake in this district, which we cannot afford. Our focus should be on the existing facilities, which, in the $27 million within the bond, would expand by 30,000 square feet. So our point of view to the community is, let's act incrementally. Let's do what we know needs to be done now. This community will always pay for things that are necessary, but let's not pay for something that may not be necessary.
Thank you. Okay, Jeff and Jessica, why didn't the school district or the school board place the improvements to existing facilities and the new school construction on the ballot as separate issues to give voters a choice?
The advisory committee that was formed almost 2 years ago considered dozens of options, some of which included this Band-Aid approach to adding incrementally to the schools. The reality is, having considered these dozens of options, that the 30,000 square foot addition was meant to work in conjunction with the new school. If there was an option that was just to add additions to these other schools, it would have been a much larger ask, both in terms of money, probably in the range of $40 to $50 million, as well as in terms of size. So it's important to note that this 2-year community process that involved surveying over 2,500 community members, they wanted a long-term solution, and having considered this piecemeal approach, the committee decided that wasn't the best thing for our community.
Thank you. Robin and Steve, and this is probably more Robin, I would think. So you have indicated that you would rather the district add on to existing facilities and wait to build a new school, which was the approach taken with the 2017 bond issue. But as building costs rise year over year, and the district continues to grapple with capacity issues that I think you agree exist, why wait to build a new school?
Well, I didn't really say it exactly that way.
Okay.
So for those of you that don't know me, I have been involved in the schools for over 7 years, since I moved here. I served on the Community Committee for Education, I was in the advisory groups, and I was on the District Accountability Committee. I've gone tons of school board meetings. And so I think it's about the demand and what we've heard over and over again. The 10+2 committee that helped pass the bond that expanded the high school in the mid-90s, they are the ones that suggested another pod in the back of the high school. CC4E recommended that to the school board in 2017, and it was rejected. And I tried with others to do it again during this advisory group process. The high school was ignored. So I'm not saying that we don't need to build a school in the future, but I think this town is an incremental town. We have a hard time doing everything at once. So let's take the approach of, let's fix what's broken, like we would do in our house, and then figure out what we need to do after.
Thank you. Okay, and this question is for both of you. Oh, no, it is not. Sorry, back up. This question is again for Jessica and Jeff. How is the issue of overcrowding affecting our students' education?
Thank you. Overcrowding has a lot of very significant impacts on our students. I teach at Steamboat Springs Middle School, 6th grade special education. There are various ways from my own personal aspect. I teach in an atrium. I teach in a piece of glass that didn't have heat until 2 years ago. So I packed a bunch of kids in there. And those are our overflow spaces. These are the places where we are trying to get students extra help, where I'm trying to pull students out of class to teach them something or review. Those are the spaces that we are overflowing into, filling up the hallway. Additionally, having too many students in a classroom isn't just about space. It's not square footage. It's about the relationships that we can build with students in the classroom. That if there are 25 kids in my class and I spend 10 minutes just trying to build some classroom management and get everybody settled down, it is a waste of pure academic time that we could be teaching skills and building those relationships with our students so that they can truly be comfortable to learn. Thank you.
Thank you. So Robin and Steve, there's been a lot of talk about demographic reports, and there have been a lot of demographic reports commissioned, including one by CC4E. Do you think these reports support the need for a new school?
I am not a demographic expert. The thing that I know about demography that I learned during CC4E and this last is that demography is a social science, not a science. And every demographer will say you can only predict 5 years out and you can't predict more. So I think it really depends on what strategy that you use, an overall strategy. CC4E had a number of recommendations that in different grade configurations that could have worked. But they were not taken into consideration in this last round. So that could happen, but again, I'm not an expert on this. But my main point is that we need to take an incremental approach. It's not just about what I want, it's what the community will support. And that's the most important. What do voters understand and what will they support? Because it's hard, if things are complicated, difficult to explain, people will vote no. I'm for something that's easy to understand for the voters, and that they'll vote yes.
Thank you. This question is for both of you, and we'll actually start with, just to change it up a bit, Steve and Robin. What is the long-term, I'm going to ask this of both of you, what is the long-term tax impact of 4B and 4C, the bond issue and accompanying mill levy override on local taxpayers?
Well, rather than speak directly to the tax impact, because different taxpayers will be impacted in different ways depending upon their assets and their home ownership, and commercial is different than residential. But I will tell you this, when you look at 4A, B, and C in combination, and you take the full payout of it, it's $224.7 million, which is $47 million more than the 178 million bond that was overwhelmingly defeated in 2015. So and when you take the school, the new school end of it alone, between the construction costs, the payout costs, and then the management costs, that's $150 million for the new school alone over the life of the bond and the payout. And that is virtually unprecedented spending here in the school district.
Jeff and Jessica, do you have your same question? Do you want me to repeat it?
No, I think I
Yeah.
have, thank you. I'm not a tax expert or an economics expert, much like Mr. Hoffman here. It does cost money. It costs money to borrow money. It's not unlike buying your own house. When you buy a house for $430,000, it ends up being $600,000, $700,000 later on down the line, depending on how much money you take out. What I do know is that right now, construction costs aren't getting any cheaper. They've risen over 10% or more over the past 3-4 years, which is greatly added to the cost, such that had we built this school in 2015, it probably would have cost about 35. Now it's going to be 53.5 million. The tax impact to the community is going to be $17.01 per month for every $500,000 of value. It will be $70.71 for every $500,000 of value to the commercial property owner. Borrowing money right now is at historic lows. We believe this is a good investment.
Thank you. Okay, final question, and we'll start with Jeff and Jessica. Why should or why shouldn't voters pass a mill levy to increase staff pay outside of the normal budget and collective bargaining process?
Thank you, sorry. Outside of the normal budgeting process for the last, I've lived in this district for 12 years, but over the last many years, we have been unable to fund, as a district, we've been unable to fund increases to meet even cost of living. We are behind overall as far as cost of living goes, very significantly. The average cost of living in Steamboat Springs is $60,000 and our starting salary is at $38,000. We're about 55 average in the city, in the school district. So we are so far behind and have not been able to give those increases over time, so that we keep falling further and further behind the cost of living, and we're not catching up repeatedly year after year.
Thank you.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
the teacher salaries are about $55,000 a year. The average household income in Steamboat is $65,000 a year, which represents multiple sources of income. We don't have a retention problem here with our teachers and staff. Indeed, we are so much lower in terms of our turnover rate compared to all of our surrounding communities, and also compared to other mountain towns. We are even lower than Cherry Creek in terms of that. Look, teachers are important. I don't know what they should be paid. I don't think most voters know what they should be paid. But if we have a separate ballot that determines that, why not have that for the police? Why not have it for the firemen? Why not have it for the EMTs? Why not have it for city employees? All good and important people in our community. The collective bargaining process and the budget process is the place for it to be decided. That's the role of the school board. I think they should do their jobs.
Thank you, Steve. Now it's time for 1-minute closings, and we will start with Steve and Robin and end with Jeff and Jessica.
Well, thank you, Lisa, for the opportunity to speak to this, and thank you all for turning out. It's a great crowd, and I know that everybody is very focused on this. As I said before, A, B, and C will total almost $225 million, much higher than the bond issue that was defeated in 2015. But more to the point, 4C irresponsibly, and in my judgment cynically, combines the spending we should make, including the addition of 30,000 square feet to existing facilities, with $150 million in spending we may not need. And the school board has taken a my way or the highway approach, and that's a disservice to voters, to each and every one of us. But more importantly, it's a disservice to the kids in the school. We should have a better choice. It should have been given to us, and now we have what we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff?
My wife was born here. She went to school here, graduated from high school here. Her parents taught high school here. We recently had a kid, and I hope she graduates from high school here. When Lisa and I moved to Steamboat in 2014, we followed the bond process in 2015 very closely. We voted against it. We voted against it because we didn't feel that it was a community process. We felt it was too big, and we felt the process was a little rushed. Having been involved in this process this time around, I believe that this process, the options before you are right-sized, or community-driven, and is consistent with our community's vision of developing out west. A no vote means we risk construction costs continuing to escalate. It means we risk qualified teachers leaving for better paying jobs. It means we put more kids in trailers. That's why I ask you to vote yes with me on November 5th on 4A, B, and C, to help teachers and staff get the salary that they deserve, and to get our students the learning environment they deserve. Someone built us a school. It's time for us to pay it forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, all four of you. Thanks.